Hey, y'all, welcome to Healthcare Huddle, the podcast dedicated to interprofessional collaboration in the sports medicine team. Today, I have an ATPT. She's going to give us a look into each profession from the other side, which honestly, I think the AT and the PT world needs desperately, which is why I'm so excited to have her on. All right, let's get started. Today, I want to welcome Haley to the huddle. She is an ATPT. Haley, tell us how you got here. Tell us your journey.
Yeah, sure. So my journey actually started when I was 14. My high school athletic trainer would have students come work for her essentially in the athletic training room at my high school. So I started that as a freshman, stayed with her, and learned all about sports medicine through her until I was a senior. Really, really fell in love with sports medicine and being on the sideline and kind of the blend of chaos and organization that kind of comes with sports med. It was her idea actually to kind of blend PT in with it. So I ended up going to Quinnipiac University in Connecticut. I did my bachelor's degree in athletic training while I was there, worked with obviously Quinnipiac, Yale, University of Kansas, and the World Lacrosse Federation. And then stayed at
Oh,
Quinnipiac
wow.
and did my doctor of PT there and got my CSCS while I was in school for that. And I worked as an AT for the club sports program to pay for school as well. So I would say I kind of started to blend everything pretty early on in my career, but
Mhm.
I finished my didactic there. And then I went out to Phoenix, Arizona and did a clinical rotation at Exos headquarters for the NFL
Oh, yeah.
Combine, which
Yeah, I know
really,
Exodus
really,
really
yeah.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's
that really
cool.
that solidified my love of like sort of the performance aspect of everything too, because that is obviously such a big like performance hub. And then worked as a strength coach during my last clinical rotation, moved back home to Massachusetts, started working at a baseball training facility as a physical therapist. And now I'm in sports residency as PT AT. So yeah, very, very long journey
Very
so far,
cool.
even though I'm not that old.
Okay, so you are probably working with a lot of different people on the sports medicine team. What
Yeah.
kind of professions do you think you work with, like day to day?
Yeah, a lot, which is awesome. And I love that about what I do. So pretty much every day I'm talking to athletic trainers, I'm talking to other PTs, I'm talking to strength coaches. Where I am now, I have a lot of access to doctors too. So like the doctors that do all my athlete surgeries are pretty much a phone call away. So I would say getting to
Oh, yeah.
interact with them and their PAs and stuff has been awesome. But I would say on like a day-to-day basis, I'm pretty much texting one of the strength coaches or athletic trainers pretty much every day about PT.
Since you have done the AT and also now you're on the PT side, is there anything of like physical therapy that you learned about that maybe an athletic trainer didn't know? Or even the other way, is there things that maybe PTs don't know about athletic training that you kind of shared?
I would say like both fields in a way are kind of misunderstood by one another, I think. And I think having been the
That's
AT
so fair.
first and
Yeah.
now, yeah. And I think it's like unfortunate that that's the case because I think when we work together, like we get so much done. But
Hmm.
having been an AT and now being a PT, I can definitely see like I think a lot of ATs don't realize I think how rigorous some of the PT schooling can be. I know, like for me personally, a lot of my clinicals were very specific to sports, whereas I think a lot, obviously, like there are PTs out there that have less specific clinicals and then try and go into sports. And I think sometimes that can be like a misconception that we don't have a lot of experience with athletes, but I think it completely depends on like what your schooling is.
Hmm.
And then I think on the other side, I think ATs are like vastly underestimated for how much we know. I think people see like the taping and the sideline stuff and don't realize like the depth to which you're prepared for a medical emergency or like really the depth to which ATs provide like exercise and rehab, I think is really
Yeah,
misunderstood.
I totally, I totally agree. And I think both professions, there's so much of it that is behind the scenes, or just like, even a PT, like they have so much knowledge that you don't see, like you can't see their brain working. All you see is them
Right.
handing you exercises, but you don't,
Yeah.
unless you understand what they know, like you don't know
Yeah.
the inner workings, if that makes sense. I
Exactly.
think that is
Yeah.
how I feel towards PTs for sure. What do you think, just because you do a lot of interprofessional collaboration, what do you
Yeah.
think makes like a really good partner? Like even ATs working with PTs or even strength and conditioning coaches, like what do you think makes somebody really easy to work with?
I think part of it is demonstrating an openness to collaborate. I think nobody
Mm.
wants to reach out if they don't think it's going to be reciprocated. So I think in scenarios where maybe that door doesn't appear to be quite as open, the person on the other end is probably not going to go out of their way to try and make a connection if they don't think that that party is going to be receptive. And so I think
Mhm.
the number one step is just being open to collaborating and letting the other person know, like, hey, I know I'm only seeing this person twice a week and you're seeing them 3 times a week. If you see anything or you have thoughts or if you hear anything that I'm not hearing, like, let me know. I think establishing that rapport is the number
Mhm.
one thing first. And then I think people that are just open to learning and understanding other people's perspective. I think we all obviously don't have the same path to where we are. And so everybody has different perspective and different experiences that have shaped their decision-making process. And I think you lose out if you're not open-minded to what that other person's decision-making process is. And you might learn something and not make a certain mistake because you're open to kind of hearing that person's condensed experience and adapting your practice based off that.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I think that's really good. That's a really good point of view. My thing was like, which is kind of what you said, like if people were just a little less prideful of, because like I said, I know everybody knows what they're doing in their field,
Right.
but sometimes, and even I am guilty of this, sometimes you have to like, maybe maybe ask why they want to do that. And then you
Yeah.
learn the why, and then you learn how much this person knows. Like kind of what I said earlier, you can't see what is in people's brains,
Yeah.
but you can ask about it.
Yeah, for
Or you
sure.
can like
For
inquire,
sure.
I guess.
Yeah, I just think to your point, like being open minded is important. And I think knowing where you fit into the person's continuum of care, like we all have different scopes of practice that may or may not fit better for where like somebody is in the injury process or lack thereof. And I think just recognizing
Mhm.
like where you fit best and knowing like, hey, because this person is at this stage, like this person might be more important than what I can provide right now. I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you walk us through like a memorable scenario where you thought collaboration was really fantastic? You saw like a positive outcome from it?
Yeah, for sure. As I said earlier, my first job out of school, I was working at a primarily like a baseball training facility as a physical therapist. And part of what I loved about that job
Mhm.
was I could walk 10 steps and have an amazing pitching coach at my disposal, have really great strength coaches at my disposal, other PTs obviously working with me. And so I really loved that about that job. And I would say when you're
Mhm.
working in a sport like baseball, where pitching is obviously super niche and very technical, I think that is really important
Yeah.
to understand everybody's point of view. And like a collegiate pitcher, there's going to be a lot of cooks in the kitchen. They have their strength coach, they have their coach at school, maybe they have a private pitching coach, they have their athletic trainer. Like even if they're healthy, they're going to have a lot of people on their care team. And so then if you add in the fact that they have an
Mm.
injury and then you make it, 2 months before preseason starts, we have a lot of people that are collaborating on this case, trying to get this person where they need to be by a very specific time. And so I think all my pitchers, it was really important to talk to the strength coaches, talk to the pitching coaches. Hey, what are you seeing? Talking to the athletic trainers, you're seeing them 5 days a week. What are you seeing? And I think making
Mm.
sure that like doing my job makes their jobs easier, I think was really influential. I can think of a specific case where this individual had been having elbow pain for like, I think 2 seasons at this point, trying to play through it, like had not been fully healthy since being like a freshman in college.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, yeah. So
That's
that's
so
a really
athlete
long
of them.
time. It's so athlete.
Yeah,
It's
that's a
so
really long
collegiate athlete of
time.
them. But I think that's really important to note because there's this lack of like trust in your own ability when you've been in chronic pain for that long. So that level of trust to have with them
Yeah.
is like even more important. And so I would be texting his athletic trainer, like, hey, so and so like looked a little bit like tight today. Have you noticed anything change in the last week? And no, she would write back, no, I haven't really noticed anything, but like they did a bunch of pull downs the other day. So that's probably why. I can work on some soft tissue stuff when I see him tomorrow. That way you don't have to do it, which is great. Cause in the
Mhm.
PT world, we have a very finite period of time with whoever we're with. Whereas, in an
Mhm.
athletic training world, obviously you're seeing multiple people at a time in that sort of rush period before practice, but you're not billing. So it doesn't like really matter how much time you spend with them. So I
Yeah.
think that was super important was this is an individual that has a bunch of stuff that we need to address in a short period of time. I'm seeing him twice a week. The AT is seeing him 4 times a week. The pitching coach is seeing him twice a week. How can we divide and conquer to get this person where they need to be the fastest instead of everybody working in a silo and like
Mhm.
slowly chipping away at it? So then like going to the pitching coach and saying like, when you're looking at his form, like what are you seeing? What can I address that's going to make your job cleaning up his form better and make your job easier?
Mhm.
And then kind of just picking the case apart like that. And I think it worked really well for us because we were very intentional. And it wasn't like, I'm going to do some of this and what this person's going to do might offset that or the same page. And now
Mm-hmm.
the athlete that we said had chronic pain for multiple seasons is unsure because everybody's speaking a different language. I think it's just really important for
Yeah.
everybody to be on the same page.
Yeah. No, that's like a dream scenario, actually.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's such a cool story.
Yeah. No,
The
it's super
school that I'm
cool.
with right now, the school I'm with right now has like very limited resources. So I don't really work with like a lot of skills coaches.
Mm-hmm.
PT's not always, which is also kind of what I'm learning is PT is not always accessible for
Mm-hmm.
everybody, even like families who have one car or whatever. But that is the dream scenario is that you have all of these people that work together because that's best for the athlete, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And then even like a pitching coach is going to know like, oh yeah, his elbow was doing this. They notice
Yeah.
all those little things. Yeah.
Right. And then it's cool to take those person's findings and correlate them like, oh, all of a sudden his arm slot is dropping and his velo's down. And it's like, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense because, his rotator cuff strength fell off because he didn't do any arm care over the last however many months, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So I just think it's
Yeah,
cool to have insight
exactly.
that,
Yes.
yeah, you wouldn't have that insight because I'm not a pitching coach. Like, I'm not going to be the one that's, doing that for him. So just having that
Yeah.
insight, I think is helpful.
Yeah, exactly. What about the biggest challenge you've faced with working with other professionals?
I think it's kind of what you and I have already said, where people don't always recognize what value my credentials bring to the table. Not just my credentials, but my experience. And I'm sure you can relate, but just not understanding what your job is. So it's like if you
Mm-hmm.
don't know that athletic trainers can provide, post-op care, you're going to be like, well, why are you going to your AT after you had, when you're 5 months post-op? Well, maybe that person ran out of insurance visits and now they're looking for somebody else to help them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think part of the problem is just literally not knowing what the other interprofessional individuals do and like what their scope of practice is and what their perspective is. So I think I've had times where I've had to kind of like almost explain a little bit of my background in order to get like oh, okay. So like you can help this person with X, Y, and Z thing. So I would say that's the biggest barrier is legitimately just a lack of knowledge about what each profession does.
Even when you were talking earlier, you were saying that there's so much more sports in the PT schooling. Honestly, I assumed you didn't really see sports until you got to a sports residency or even like after school when you started. I guess we have sports residents who come out and kind of shadow us and do
Mhm.
that. But I had no idea that you were part of sports before you finished
Yeah.
PT school, I guess, if that makes sense.
And I
So
think
even
it's
that is
obviously
something I
like,
could probably work on.
yeah. No, I mean, totally fair and valid. And I think it's hard to assume because every AT curriculum is different, every PT curriculum is different.
Hmm.
People's clinical, even from the same like cohort, you're going to have different people have different experiences. So I think even past understanding like Katie is an AT, what does Katie do? I think it's also understanding like where has Katie already been in her career? Maybe she has
Yeah.
experiences that an average AT off the street, just past the boards, like might not have because she spent time in X, Y, and Z place. So I think it really comes down to like just knowing who you're working with.
Yeah, actually that's true. I have a couple of coworkers who used to work in the ED or had worked in EMS prior, but they see an
Right.
AT.
Yeah.
Or like people see an AT or they think AT and they think like you said, like somebody fresh out of school who's done, I guess like the box model AT.
Yeah.
That's the
Right.
word. And you're right, like really there isn't one of those. And that's
Right.
probably true with PT too. That might be true with all kinds of professions.
Yeah.
The more you know, the more you think. We kind of talked about this too. I was gonna say, is there like one specific thing you wish other providers knew about what you do?
Yeah. I think the number one thing I would say is the only reason I see somebody isn't because they're not participating in team events and they're like completely sidelined from an injury. You don't need to be like on the IR and not participating at all to work with me or see me. And I think that goes for like all PTs really, especially those that maybe don't work in a traditional insurance based model. A lot when we start to look more at like our cash based PT or performance model based PT, I think that's something I'd love to see the profession kind of expand into more is really taking advantage of understanding movement and how you don't need to have problematic movement to like work on movement, I guess I would say. I think for me
Oh.
specifically, I have like a really, I would say, passionate interest in sort of like performance. And so for me, yeah, I of course see people that are injured or post op and things like that. But I also would be happy and do treat people who maybe are coming off the very end of an injury and just looking to get better at moving. And I think a lot of your
Yeah.
PT, AT people that have that strength and conditioning and performance background are well equipped to handle those things. So that's something I would love to
Hmm.
see kind of continue as I develop and as the profession develops.
Yeah. I also think you have kind of a unique take because you see the full picture with ATPT and CSCS. Like, do you have any advice to give to new athletic trainers, new PTs, new strength and conditioning babies, I guess?
Yeah. I would say my number one piece of advice would be kind of similar to that, like, get to know who's around you sort of message, but say hi to everybody and start a conversation with everybody, like, regardless of what their status in the company is, like, what their credentials are, what their relationship to your job
Hmm.
is. I think you open a lot of doors for yourself, both with regard to like opportunity and also just learning in general when you are just like friendly, kind person. And so I know like when I was at Exos, that's something that I really tried to do, like dietitians, strength coaches, performance interns, PT interns, the front
Hmm.
office staff, the cleaning staff, like just being a kind person and like saying hi and getting to know people and introducing yourself to people, I think is going to help open a lot of doors for young professionals
Yeah.
because fortunately and unfortunately the world of sports medicine is really like kind of who you know and what your experiences are, and I think it's
Yeah.
always good to just like kind of put your best foot forward, and also you never know who you might meet and where that may take you eventually.
Yeah, for sure. I know also, I see on TikTok and Instagram and stuff, a lot of people ask about sports residencies with
Mhm.
PTs specifically. Is there anything you have to say to maybe young PTs looking for to get into that? Any tips?
Yeah, for sure. I think we're at a point in sport residency where every residency is going to be a little bit different, even though they're all sports residencies, because the organizations that you're affiliated with really depend on where you are. So for me, like I'm
Mhm.
partially based out of a hospital, I'm partially based out of a Division 1 college. So the experiences that that offers me is going to be really different than somebody that's based out of only an outpatient clinic and a high school. So I would
Mhm.
say if you've decided that you want to do a sports residency, the next step is now to dig in and start to think about what you want to get out of it and why, and then find the programs that match that. So if you're super, super interested in football, you should apply to a sports residency where a lot of your time is going to be spent with football, because it doesn't really make sense for you to commit to the hours that a residency is if you're not going to be a step closer to your end goal at the end of it, in my opinion. So I think a lot of people
Yeah.
out there will apply to like 12, 13, 14 residencies, and I always just look at it as like there's no way that
Oh
all
wow.
14 of those, right, that's a lot. And it costs money to
Yeah.
apply. So it's just like that's
I was
already
thinking
a lot for
you have
me.
to spend money for
Literally.
applications each time.
Yes, all 14,
Yeah.
crazy. But there's just no way that all
Yeah.
14 of those are going to be so specific to where you see yourself in the future. So I'd say I'm 100%
Mhm.
pro residency. Obviously, I did one, but I think it's about finding the right residency for you and only applying to the ones where you feel like you're going to be closer to where you want to be long term when you're done with it. So I would say be
Yeah.
picky about where you apply.
Yeah, that's good advice. I know I had said in a video one time for athletic trainers, it doesn't matter where you go to school, just get your degree. Like nobody looks at where you went. But I might have been a little bit wrong in saying that with grad school too, because I'm like, just go somewhere Katie accredited. Like, it's fine. Just get your degree and figure it out. But I think you're right. Like, if you really want to work D1 football, then you need to be working D1 football. You need the
Right.
experience because that is, or even to find out that maybe that's not what you want to do. I think everybody wants
Yeah.
to work D1 football and then they get there and it's, for me anyway, was not the fun, exciting times I thought it would be.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
even then, like, if you had the experience, you can now use that later.
Right. Right. I think like if you're gonna, I think now obviously athletic training is a master's degree, right? So it's like now you're adding extra
Mhm.
time on. It's not just like, oh, well, I'll just like go to undergrad and get this degree because I'm going to college anyway. Like this is a super thoughtful, conscientious decision that you're making to extend your time in school and extend your
Mhm.
loans potentially, et cetera. if you're going to go through the trouble of all that, you should ensure that the time that you're putting into it is well worth it. Whether that means you just really enjoy what you're doing and where you are, that's one thing. Or if it's like, I'm super sure I want to do this one thing, and going to school somewhere specific either confirms that for you or denies that for you, I think there's value in that as well.
Okay, so I also had some like fun questions just to kind of wanted to kind of humanize all of the professions to people, because I think what we do a lot is we look at each other like, oh, they're a PT, but like you're a human being who is a PT. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So I have some like just kind of like fun rapid fire questions. Okay. That I've been asking everybody. Okay, so coffee or energy drinks?
I am a coffee addict. I will have like 2 iced coffees a day, regardless of the temperature or time of year. So I would 100% say coffee.
Do you have like a go-to like drink?
Being from New England, I would say you can never go wrong with Dunkin' Donuts for sure.
I didn't know that was a New England thing. Honestly, I don't know a lot about New England. This is the farthest east I've ever been.
Where are you now?
I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm from Arizona originally, so I don't know a whole lot about what's going on over here.
Yeah. There is not a lot of Dunkin' Donuts in Arizona. When I was there, I was like, all right, well, gonna have to find a new coffee.
Yeah, no, we have like, I could think of one. And then do you have a favorite taping or rehab or just something you reach for a lot?
I would say from like,
is what I should say.
that's fair.
Yeah.
Ooh, favorite tool. That's tough. Honestly, I feel like I find myself doing a lot of manual therapy with my hands. To be on, I know people are going to say for the longevity of your career, you should always switch it up. That way you don't give yourself arthritis or whatever. But I think that there's power in feeling the tissue quality, like for yourself. And then I think that I'm going to be one of the people that dies on this rehab hill. Nobody in this country trains their adductors enough. And so Copenhagen's all day long to everybody. I just think that is something that's overlooked. So I will always be doing some adductor work with people.
Yeah. No, that's actually, you're so right. I was trying to think like, how often am I adding that in? And really only to like my knee injury kids.
Which is an important population for sure.
If you can talk about this in the most HIPAA way possible, like what's the most interesting injury that you've treated?
Ooh, most interesting injury ever? That's tough. I would say I had an individual who had a surgical procedure that's not super, I would say, common, I guess, for the population that they are in. They had a microfracture procedure of their shoulder, which I've seen microfracture in other places, but not necessarily shoulder a lot in my career. This is the first time. So that was a little bit of like a learning curve, but it went super well, and that individual is back to sports. So maybe that's a sign that should be a more popular procedure. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to definitely look more up about that. That's very interesting. I don't know a ton about microfracture.
You see it done a lot more in the lower extremity. I think there was a period of time where it was more popular in the upper extremity, but not something I get scripts for super often at the clinic for sure.
Because you do work with sports. Do you have like a game day ritual or like anything that even when you were an athletic trainer, anything that you did before every game?
When I was working, as
you
a
are an
graduate
athletic
assistant,
trainer, but
when I was primarily working as one, when I was a graduate assistant, I would definitely say iced coffee before a game day would be essential.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I remember I covered a rugby game by myself one time, which, side note, I will never do that again because that was literally the worst day of my life.
No, I only did that one time too. Yeah.
Everybody says that. Everybody's like, I did it one time and now I refuse to work a rugby game unless there's more than one of us, which completely fair because it literally traumatized me. Yeah. I didn't get a nice coffee before that game, and it legitimately worst game of my life. Like crazy stuff happening. I got used as a pick on the field.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's about right for rugby.
Insane. Yes, yeah. And not only are they insane, but they're so convinced they're not hurt. So they're bleeding out or have the worst concussion you ever saw right with your eyes immediately. And they're like, nah, I'm fine.
Yeah. We get people. So part of what I do right now is I'm spending a lot of time learning about concussion and doing concussion eval and treating concussion. Every time without fail, we have a rugby player come in and they always are 19 to 24 years old, and they've been playing rugby for 5, 6, 7 years. And they were like, oh, have you ever had a concussion? And they're like, no. And I'm like, respectfully, there's no way that that's true. If you've been playing rugby for that long, I'm sure you've had at least one.
Yeah. Oh, actually, do you know what? I do have a PT related question about this. So I have seen a lot of PTs advocating more and more for like, I guess for them to have more work in the concussion world.
Mm-hmm.
What does a PT do with concussions that maybe an athlete, or maybe that they can't do that an athletic trainer does? Or what is it? Yeah. Do they evaluate? Do they treat?
Yeah.
What are they doing with
Yeah.
concussions?
Great question. And honestly, I didn't know the answer to this until this year because I have only seen a small number of concussions when I was in outpatient practice prior to this residency. But now that I'm in this residency, I spend a lot of time working in concussion. And it's
Mm-hmm.
it's a subject matter I'm super interested in and passionate about. And I do think that it's an area of sports med where we as a whole profession need a lot of growth.
Mm-hmm.
So as a I would say as in my AT brain would say when you guys or us or we are on the field, a lot of what you're doing is like quick assessment to basically say, is this person, can they go or can they not? And I think that's athletic training
Mm-hmm.
kind of in a nutshell when you're on a sideline, which I think is something that's really hard for PTs to grasp because they're never in that environment enough to know like go or no being kind of like a definitive question. So I would
Yeah.
say in my AT
Where you have like
experience,
minutes to decide. Yeah.
right. And it can never be perfect. It's not a perfect decision. You don't have time to do 10,000
Mm.
and pull all this data and be like, I'm 100% confident that this is the right decision. You have to just kind of make the decision with the time and info that you have.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah. Have enough
that's what
evidence that they're
happens.
going to be all right.
Yeah. And I think that's what happens with potential concussions too, is like, can they go or can they not? How confident am I that this person is concussed with the literally like 90 seconds that coach gave me to evaluate them? And then kind of triaging that after the fact. So if you withhold them from going back in, triaging that after the fact in the ATR versus if they played, double checking your work and making sure that they're doing well over the course of 24 to 48 hours after the initial injury. I think the physical
Mm-hmm.
therapy side to it is a little bit different because typically when we're getting a concussion patient, we're pretty sure that they've had a concussion because that referral has to have come from somewhere. Some athletic trainer or doctor has to say, like, you've had a concussion, you need to go see this person.
Yeah.
So we're still evaluating, but not necessarily from like giving them a diagnosis tag, more so from assessing like what are their deficits and what's the severity. And then we
Mm-hmm.
treat concussions based off of your ocular motor and vestibular exam and your balance and all of these other things that we're looking at. Where are the deficits? And that's where we're going to fill in the treatment. So somebody might not have every single deficit. They might, have poor convergence and then also has some signs and symptoms of vestibular dysfunction. And so we're going to go in and
Mm-hmm.
target those things and track that progress over time and guide them back to sports. So I know obviously most universities have a protocol, but if things start to not look great in the protocol or like they were progressing and then they hit a roadblock and the AT can't figure out kind of like why we can't get over this day, whatever of the
Mm-hmm.
protocol hump, that's
Yeah.
kind of where we come in to troubleshoot that and like continue to push that progress forward, I would
Yeah.
say.
Take like a more in-depth look at it, I
Yeah.
guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's really cool. I was able to work with when I was in grad school, I was in a concussion clinic for my rotation for a year. And we had a vestibular therapist, and it was the coolest thing to work with her. And I forget that not all athletic trainers like check near point convergence and like do all of those things, but like I learned
Yeah.
from her. And like so I learned all those extra tests, all those extra things to look for. And so I think sometimes when I get in fights with people online, I'm like, no, we do know how to do that, but
It's like, well,
I
you
forget
know how
that
to
is
do
she
that
was a
really well.
PT. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I think to your point, concussion is just not as, I guess, far along as like, I don't know, we have the Ottawa ankle rules
No.
and we know how to treat lateral ankle sprains and there's protocols out there and there's research on it and there's return to sport and protocols for
Mm-hmm.
that. And I think concussion is just not as far along yet. And I
No,
think
you're
that
so
that's
right.
obviously, it's a problem. But I think there are people out there that are fighting the good fight and trying to push it forward. Like the mentor that I have here at my residency, she's unbelievable with concussion and I've learned so much from her. So my goal
Mm-hmm.
is that information becomes readily available for everybody so that athletic trainers that don't have resources that are in a rural high school setting like are armed with that knowledge and can make decisions about referrals better. Like, I think that's what
Yeah,
the future of sportsmen for concussion looks like for me, I think.
I agree. Like I said, this is like that teamwork aspect again that would come in so nicely. You have the
Right.
athletic trainer doing that original check, doing whatever, and then having somebody who has the time to sit with this kid and hook him up to the machines and whatever.
Right.
You know, that would be best case scenario. And I'm sure
Yeah.
like, D1 schools do have you're here, D1 schools do
Right.
have that, and I think professional, but you're right. Yeah. No, high schools, that's never the case, even in the nicest high schools.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Mhm.
And I think it's about also making sure that people are armed with information of like what that looks like long term. Like, I think in all sport there's risk and benefit, and 9 times out of 10 the benefit of being an athlete and being healthy and playing sport and being active throughout your whole life is going to outweigh the cost of that. But there are some
Mhm.
things out there that we need to empower people to take super seriously. And I think brain health is one of them. I don't think that that's a
Yes.
reason to not play sport by any means, but I think it's important to be
No.
aware of taking care of your brain.
Yes, yes. And more people need to think that that's a need to buy into that. More athletes, more parents, more coaches
Right.
need to
Yeah.
realize how important that is.
Yeah.
And then, okay, we'll come back to the fun questions. If you were in healthcare, what kind of job do you think you would work?
Ooh. Before I was a athletic training student in high school, my goal was to become a marine biologist, but I'm very bad at chem. I don't think that would have worked out for me. So honestly, I don't know. I feel like all my backup plans are also somehow related to like health and wellness. Perhaps like a florist, I don't know, or like a baker.
I know, yeah. It's a hard question to ask like healthcare people because we're all so passionate about being in healthcare. Like,
Yeah,
no girl, like I worked hard to get here, but I think it's kind of fun to hear other things.
for sure.
I worked a lot in retail before, through college and through everything. So honestly, I probably would do that. I'd probably make a lot more as a manager of like Victoria's Secret than doing this anyway.
Fair enough.
Okay. And then I'm setting up an Amazon storefront right now. So do you have any Amazon items that you feel like you can't live without? Or like
Mm.
like just like one item that I can throw on the Amazon storefront?
I have two that I am going back and forth between. Because I am a coffee addict, I would say one of those, I think it's like the Awala brand, the coffee mugs that if you tip them upside down, they don't spill.
Yes. Yeah. No,
That,
that's a good one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or I'm like addicted also to my planner, writing everything out throughout the week. So probably like a really nice planner off Amazon.
Oh, those are two really good ones. I'm gonna put both
Yeah.
of those on there.
Okay,
Those
perfect.
are two good ones. Where can people find you? Where can people like follow you online?
Yeah, so I'm active on Instagram and TikTok. I would say my Instagram is more so clinical based stuff like Therex that I'm really liking for certain stuff or like case reviews of things. So that's at hw.dpt. And then I'm recently kind of got active on TikTok. That is way more like career based stuff. So I give a lot of insight on like what does it look like to be a sports PT resident? What does an average week look like? What are the opportunities that you may find in residency? So that is just my first name dot last name. So HALEY.WONG. And always looking for, I've just been super lucky to have amazing mentorship throughout my career. And I think that getting that sort of mentorship shouldn't be based off of like the luck of where you live or what school you go to. So
Yes.
basically just TikTok is really just me trying to like push everything that I've been told from other mentors out into the universe in hopes that somebody finds it and makes some decisions based off of it. Yeah.
Okay, well, those are all the questions that I have for you. Do you have any closing thoughts? Anything that I didn't talk about that you wish that we did?
I don't know. I guess just like message for people trying to go into sports medicine. It's such a rewarding field and it's a hard path. I guess I would say like I know you can attest like it's a lot of school, it's a lot of hands-on experience before you're kind of like where you want to be. So I guess if anybody is listening to this that is hoping to get into sports med in the future, I would say like keep pushing forward, keep knocking on doors and hoping that people open those doors and give you some opportunities based off of just kind of like going out there and trying to get yourself where you want to be. And then I would say like my personal sort of mantra with regard to like going to work every day and being in this field is show up early, be kind, serve others, do not judge. So I think if you do those four things, you're going to probably get pretty far in sportsmen.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's probably the best advice you could give anybody looking to get into sports med. Well, thank you so much for coming on this podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I will probably talk to you again someday.
I hope so.
Thank you so much for listening today. I am loving these interviews. I'm learning so much. I feel like I'm getting exactly what I wanted everybody to get out of this. Now, our next interview is going to be with a strength and conditioning sports performance coach who I have known for quite a few years now. And I'm really excited about that one. I'm really excited to share that with you guys. So I will see you in a week.